Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
WMAL. 7:06 on O'Connor and Company this Friday in your nation's capital as we wrap up a very busy week and send you into what should be a beautiful weekend once these apparently tornadoes pass by. Today, coming up at 7:35, Joe Concha on the media. 8:05, we'll talk to Hung Kao, who served valiantly in the United States Navy. We'll get his reaction to Tim Walz's apparent stolen valor claims. And then at 8:35, Sal Vulcano, comedian from Impractical Jokers, who's coming to town. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka.
Happy Friday.
Well, thanks, Patrice. Happy Friday to you, too.
Yes.
It's about policy. It's not about her. I think she's incompetent because I've watched her. She destroyed California. She destroyed San Francisco. Everything she's touched has turned to bad things. I'm not going to use foul language.
We know what he meant, though. But I do love that it's not about her. It's about policy. Joining us right now is our buddy Charlie Spiering. He's a political reporter for the Daily Mail, also author of the book Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House. And boy, oh boy, hopefully you're a man in demand here since you wrote about Kamala Harris well before she was anointed the nominee for the Democrats. Charlie, good talking with you. Thanks for joining us.
You bet, Larry. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's very surreal to see everything taking place and seeing her seize the nomination, but has not really been on camera to sort of reassure people that she's up for the job.
Yeah, and, the Washington Post headline on yesterday's press conference from Donald Trump is, Trump delivers meandering press conference, which, fine. But this wasn't even really about what Donald Trump said. It was about the fact that Donald Trump did it, the fact that he stood there for over an hour without a teleprompter, without a script, without preordained reporters being selected. And he just said, yeah, you got questions? Let's go. It really does show a stark contrast, but I don't think your colleagues in the media really care at this point. They're there to help Kamala.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of White House reporters were like, oh, yes, remember this? When the president used to have press conferences. It was a throwback to the golden era when we could ask and answer questions and go back and forth with the president, Haven't seen that from Biden and certainly not from Kamala Harris. There's a lot of celebration about her new, vivaciousness and her new youth and energy. And today, she's smiling. There's joy in the campaign. Well, for a reporter, that's not very useful unless you're just going to write about her smiling and her joyful campaign. There's not very much else to write about. Yeah. So she's got to come out there. She's got to start talking to reporters. She's got to start taking questions about important issues because right now it's, and then Trump admits he's still in a honeymoon phase. So it's longer than my honeymoon was, but here we go.
Well, so speaking of the honeymoon being over, what do you think is the strategy that the Harris campaign is implementing here? Because it seems like maybe they're going to wait till maybe September to actually start doing any sort of media interviews. Is that going to be acceptable to anyone in the press corps for them to wait that long to put her in front of a microphone and have her take unscripted questions? Or do you think there's going to be something that forces the campaign's hand and forces her to actually step up and do something that's not scripted?
Well, if you're the Harris campaign, why would you go out unscripted and take questions from the press? Your media, your press is pretty much pitch perfect. Everyone's just marveling at the miraculous turnaround of Harris, who was once the most unpopular vice president in modern history, who also, there was there's at least chatter behind the scenes among Democrats about whether or not they should replace her on the ticket. And now suddenly she's the heir apparent and the product of a celebration of the news media. Why would any campaign try to mess that up? They're going to ride this train as long as it'll keep going.
Yeah, and I want to remind everybody, coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to check in with Joe Concha, too, who really covers the media and the hypocrisy of the media on issues like this. Because as we've got Charlie here, who's a political reporter and has been so with The Examiner and Breitbart and now Daily Mail, I'd love for you to sort of reflect on the substance of the press conference yesterday. Was there anything of note that stood out to you? I know that he's agreed now or announced 3 debates on 3 different networks, ABC, Fox, and NBC, and Kamala Harris has only agreed to the September 10th debate. Was there anything else here that you saw that was of import or maybe sort of sticks out in terms of how Donald Trump is looking at the next 90 days of this campaign in the final stretch?
Yeah, it showed to me that he's clearly worried about the trajectory of the Harris campaign, and he's seriously concerned about trying to shake up the race and reassess it on his terms. Really trying to grapple with it because everybody, he's hearing from his Republican consultants, don't get personal, stay on policy differences. But the thing about presidential races is they are personal. Mm-hmm. And so Trump is trying to find a way, and Trump, a big part of why he was so successful in politics is because he made it personal. He was able to sort of savage his rivals and bring them down and push himself up by, telling it like it is and earning the respect and love of his supporters. So I still think that he's struggling to sort of find the right balance, to find the proper way to attack Harris in a personal way mm-hmm. without coming off as a bully. And I think it's real. You could see him thinking on his feet as he was doing the press conference, trying to, hit Harris for her her lack of qualifications, while at the same time trying to find the right way to attack her. I think it's still up in the air, and he hasn't settled on a certain attack.
We focus a lot on the top of the ticket, but what's going on down ballot? Is there a sense among Democrats that maybe they'll be able to hold the Senate? And is there any energy around them potentially taking the House, or is everything pretty much baked in from before the Harris effective nomination to the top of the ticket?
Yeah, I think that Democrats are still running scared. They don't want to be too optimistic about their situation at this point, even though the expectations on the top of the ticket have surpassed their wildest dreams at this point. I still really think that they have realized that they have a lot of work to do to energize Democrats, to get them out to the polls for some of these, for this, why is Donald Trump going to Montana? Well, a huge part of that is because he wants to see John Tester get defeated at the ballot box and have a Republican replace him there. So. Mm-hmm. This is sort of the, Trump going to Montana, that's not a sign that he's worried about losing Montana. It's a sign that he really wants to see that seat. He really wants to see Tester replaced.
Charlie, did you just say that, Trump's being advised not to make it personal about Kamala Harris? Because, listen to this moment from the press conference yesterday.
Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together, and there was an emergency landing. This was not a pleasant landing, and Willie was he was a little concerned. So I know him pretty well. I mean, I haven't seen him in years, but he told me terrible things about her. But this is what you're telling me anyway, I guess.
I mean, it's got to be, if he's really trying to be on his best behavior and not make it personal, it's pretty hilarious to see him wrestle with moments like that. And obviously you can tell he's going right up to the brink and then pulling himself back.
Yeah, that's, certainly his consultants are telling him not to make it personal, but, this is good. This is Donald Trump. So it is interesting, the story about Willie Brown. I'm not sure about the helicopter story. I think Willie Brown came out and said that Trump was making it up. But I do note.
How do you make that up? How do you make up a story? It's not like he's saying his uncle was eaten by cannibals in World War II.
Well, yeah, that's true. But Willie Brown and Kamala Harris did actually fly up to Trump Tower in New York. There's a very interesting anecdote about that. And back when Trump was real estate developer, he sent his private jet to bring Willie Brown to Trump Tower for a meeting about real estate. I don't think Kamala Harris made it to the meeting at Trump Tower, but she was on the Trump plane with Willie Brown at that point during the year that they dated.
He literally wrote the book about Kamala Harris, and he's now covering politics. A pretty impressive year in politics, by the way, for the Daily Mail. He's Charlie Spiering. Charlie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
as
Charlie.
Always.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
It's 7:15 WMAL traffic.
News is brought to you by New Look Home Design.
Well, we have an update on the Hunter Biden saga. The Justice Department has made an assertion now, a legal assertion, that Hunter Biden was hired by a Romanian oligarch. I haven't heard about the Romanians. We know about the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Chinese and the Kazakhstanis. And, I mean, let's face it,
let's just go through all of Eastern Europe and just throw it in there.
Whoever's got money, we're open to business for you. A Romanian oligarch paid Hunter Biden millions of dollars to influence U.S. policies. That would, of course, be a violation of FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. This is an act that's used often to prosecute Republicans who have left office or have left public service and have become lobbyists, but never the son of the President of the United States. Well, now that Joe Biden is no longer the nominee, apparently the Justice Department has found their way to saying, hey, all this money that Hunter made from foreign companies, maybe this was meant to influence U.S. policy and public opinion.
Wow, the light bulb went off in their heads, Larry.
Who knew? Yeah, talk about a day late and a dollar short. Peter Baker, New York Times, this is my favorite spin. While not charged as a foreign agent, Hunter Biden, quote, performed almost no work in exchange for the millions of dollars he received from these entities, unquote.
Is that surprising?
In Romania, Ukraine, and China, prosecutors allege. So in other words, these companies gave Hunter Biden millions of dollars. He did basically nothing for it. But these countries surely thought they were buying something, and they were. They were buying access and influence to the then Vice President of the United States.
You know, I wish this was a headline from the Babylon Bee, but it's actually a Fox News headline, and this confirms what we've all already known, that Hunter Biden has peddled influence with his father around the world. And it should have been a disqualifying feature for President Biden to be president right now. And you know, you've seen conservatives spend the past 3.5 years trying to expose these misdealings and have been slandered by the media and by their progressive colleagues that this is nonsense. And it's not nonsense. He's actually being charged with 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors in these tax cases because he did not pay his taxes and instead blew them on drugs, escorts, and everything else.
That's a key element here, everybody, because I know that you're saying, well, there you go, Larry. See, a Democrat is being charged with the FARA violations, right?
No, it's not.
No. Yeah, no, these filings in the Central District of California, filed by Special Counsel David Weiss, are not charges of violations of FARA and acting as a foreign agent without registering with the U.S. government. This is supporting evidence in the filings in the tax case. This is all coming down to the tax dodging case against Hunter Biden. He has not faced any criminal prosecution of any sort about selling, peddling, and dealing influence in the U.S. government at the hands of his vice president. Why? Why has he not been charged with that? Because then that would implicate Joe Biden himself, and they are continuing to protect Joe Biden. It is 7:21.
Making sense of your world.
Appreciate what you do.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
Making sense of the news.
Well, Kamala Harris has changed her voice yet again based on the audience in front of her. Of course, it's her mentor that showed her the way.
I don't feel no ways tired.
That's right. Hillary was the master of this, but Kamala's starting to sort of even surpass her. Here she was in Atlanta last week.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
That's right. Now, understand that Kamala Harris was born to a Jamaican father and an Indian mother in Oakland and Berkeley, California. She then moved to Quebec province of Canada. To be fair, it was South Quebec, so I guess there's a southern
I don't
something
see that
there.
at all. Yeah.
I don't think so either. And then at a rally in Detroit this week.
Hold on. You know what? Hold on. Here's the thing. The courts are going to handle that. We're going to beat them in November.
Yeah, we gonna beat them in November. And then yesterday at the UAW.
You know, the one thing about all of us is we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is good work. The thing that we like about hard work is we have fun doing hard work. Thank Thank you to the sisters and brothers of UAW for all you are and all we will do over these next 89 days. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. We won't get this done.
Yeah, this whole thing is a Hollywood script. She's playing a part, she's playing a character, and she's been hired by very wealthy producers and directors in the Democratic Party and in the Billionaires Club, and that's what you're seeing right now.
That is what you're seeing. You're seeing somebody who's so inauthentic. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Coming up, Joe Concha is going to analyze how the media is letting Kamala Harris basically write her own ticket to the White House at this point. Why aren't reporters more interested in actually asking questions of this candidate, considering there's lots of questions that need to be answered about how she even got where she is? We'll deal with Joe Concha next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in. Coming up, 8:05, Hung Kao, Republican running for Senate in Virginia. He, of course, served over 25 years as a captain, ultimately, when he retired in the United States Navy. He has plenty to say about Tim Walz's military record. Well, what Tim Walz says about his military record. At 8:35, Saul Volcano, comedian and member of the Impractical Jokers team, is going to join us. Patrice Onwuka, I think Joe Concha was part of that Impractical Jokers team, too, wasn't he?
I think he would fit in perfectly.
100%. That's his kind of humor. He's a madman. He joins us now, author of a new book. What is the name of that book? The new book is Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Yo Daddy's Donkeys. I say it in the new accent of Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Ain't yo daddy's donkeys. That's how she talks when she's in Detroit. Joe, thanks for joining us.
It is amazing, right? That accent thing that Kamala Harris does. It's like a bad impression of the Hillary bad accent when she would go down to Georgia, for example. I just and no one cares. It's like, wouldn't you be insulted if you're in that audience? I mean,
that's the key.
Exactly.
I mean, Joe, you've been doing media criticism for over a decade now, and I gotta say, this is probably the newest low, and that is saying something. But it's not like there aren't a lot of questions to ask of this woman. Number one, what did you know about Joe Biden's health? Because you were telling us all he was sharp as a tack and on top of his game. Number two, did Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, did anybody talk to you before they coaxed Joe Biden off the ticket? Number three, where do I begin? The number three is about 20 other things about how she has been able to ascend to this position. And yet your pals, your colleagues in the media don't seem to think that she needs to answer any of those questions.
I mean, Larry, you said you were 100% against fracking, Ms. Harris. Now your campaign spokespeople are saying you're all for it. What does that mean for the environment? That's something I would ask. Because this way, where do you go with that, right? You either anger the left or voters in Pennsylvania, depending on how you answer. Hey, you said you want to abolish ICE, yet more than 12 million people have come into this country unvetted. Do you still want to abolish ICE? Why do you oppose border wall construction? Why do you support sanctuary cities? Why do you want to raise taxes when you see what's going on with the economy? Why do you think it's okay for my 10-year-old daughter to get a sex change without parental permission? There are 1,000 questions she could have been asked yesterday when a reporter finally got to her, and they're all about Trump or Vance. It's just, which is the easiest questions to answer because it's like, hey, Donald Trump's bad, but how bad? J.D. Vance is weird, but how weird? It's just so pathetic, man. I mean, I used to kind of try to couch my comments a little bit like, well, there are some good journalists left. Where are they? Where are you people? Because I don't hear it.
Well, and you would think that the fact that she's been on a honeymoon with the press for so long, that they would be salivating to ask her questions. That said, President Trump had a presser yesterday. What do you make of the presser? And President Trump, his delivery, a couple of times he restrained himself from going too negative or too personal, because that's exactly what it would have turned into. But what did you make of the presser?
42 questions over 63 minutes. So that's 42 more questions than Kamala Harris has taken as the Democratic nominee and 62 more minutes that she's taken as far as questions in general.
So he's not afraid to get out there, obviously. He had 35 solo press conferences in his first term in the final year, 35. Wow. And now we have Joe Biden, who has yet to take any questions as to, hey, you stepped down from running again. Why is that? Was it because of your mental health, your physical health? Were you bullied out of this? So he's not taking questions. And the same goes for her. She's going to plead the 5th all the way to November 5th, basically. I mean, she said, maybe I'll do an interview by the end of the month. Oh, great. You need 3 weeks to prepare for Rachel Maddow? I mean, this is pathetic.
Yeah, that's the problem. Everyone's screaming about why hasn't she done an interview? When she finally does, the questions are going to be so milquetoast that is like, well, there, checked that box. I can move on now. Joe, your book, I think, is pretty relevant right now, if I may say. The book is Progressively Worse: Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys, because Tim Walz, the folksy, good old neighborly Minnesota farmer football coach guy who is now the running mate of Kamala Harris, he's being sold to the American people as, in fact, our daddy's donkeys. He's everybody's dad. He's just a good old traditional blue-collar rural Democrat. Is he, though, Joe? Because I'm looking at some of the things he's done. He doesn't seem like FDR and Harry Truman.
Oh, no. Or John F. Kennedy, who I talk about in the book for a whole chapter, the guy who cut taxes when he inherited a recession and got great results from it. The guy who opposed racial quotas in John F. Kennedy. The guy who beefed up his military, stared down Khrushchev. That's John F. Kennedy, who actually saw battlefields, or at least he did in the Pacific anyway, whatever you would call that, and was a war hero. Or Bill Clinton, for that matter, the guy who worked with Newt Gingrich for a balanced budget amendment, had budget surpluses, said the era of big government's over, worked to pass welfare reform, talked about illegals, made Donald Trump sound like a wallflower, Bill Clinton did, when it came to talking about illegals and taking away jobs from Americans. This Tim Walz, this guy who, I have an 8-year-old that's going into 3rd grade this year, and I guess if we lived in Minnesota, we live in New Jersey, but if we lived in Minnesota, my son could look forward to seeing tampon machines in the boys' bathroom in elementary schools. I mean, this guy, what he did during COVID, he had the strictest rules, even more than Gavin Newsom had a snitch hotline if you were seen without a mask in places you're supposed to be wearing a mask. And then obviously we could talk about what happened with Minneapolis, which looked like the Nakatomi Plaza at the end of Die Hard, what they did to that police precinct there. $500 million worth of damage. He wouldn't send in the National Guard. Yeah, that's a moderate. Gotcha.
Joe, we're seeing today new brand new release police body cam footage from the day that of the assassination attempt against President Trump. Are you surprised that an assassination attempt against a former president who's in the running to be the next president of the United States has moved off the front page? It's not even on the back page within it's been maybe 3-4 weeks now, but still it was not as big of a news story. Even if the media doesn't like President Trump and doesn't want him to win, wouldn't coverage of this be Pulitzer Prize winning?
Oh, Patrice, I mean, what we're seeing now, I was at a Trump rally in New Jersey. I'm writing a book on the campaign. So I went to the one in Wildwood where, I don't know how many people were there, 80, 100,000 people, as far as you could see. I don't know how you quite count that. But and I remember seeing Trump up on stage, and they allowed a plane, this little plane, to fly over the rally the entire time. And I had a Trump banner on the end of it. But I'm like, why is that plane even allowed to be above him? Then behind Trump, there was an amusement park in Wildwood, and the rides were still operating. I'm like, is anybody vetting anybody who's going on these rides? Because some of them were above the stage, basically. Wow. I'm like, boy, that could be a clear shot. And that was obviously that was in May. This was before the assassination attempt. And the fact that, I just want to know why not one person was fired. I know the Secret Service director was stepped down because of overwhelming pressure, but no one's been fired, not one person. Who was the commander on that day who allowed Donald Trump to go on the stage when you knew for 90 minutes there was a threat out there, when you knew that he could possibly be in jeopardy? And that's why, I'm past the point of incompetence. It's like, was he not supposed to leave the stage that day? Who orchestrated this? These are things that the press absolutely should be asking, because this is one of the biggest stories of the year. And if it can happen to Donald Trump, if he doesn't turn his head even a quarter of an inch more, he's dead.
Yes.
This could happen to Kamala Harris. This could happen to Taylor Swift, as we heard. All these attacks that could happen. We don't have security right now, and they're either incompetent or there's something worse going on. And I shudder to think if worse is actually true.
Joe Concha single-handedly starting the Whisper campaign to get him to be the press secretary in the Trump administration.
Oh, no way. That's a hard job, man. No shot.
Author of the book Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. Joe, thanks for joining us this morning. Always good to talk with you.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Patrice. Have a good weekend.
Miss anything? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Get today's breaking news on the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on WMAL.
Patrice, as a former subject of the British Crown, I know that you are sitting there every day thinking to yourself, I wonder what's going on with Harry and Meghan, right?
Whenever I get nausea,
You start to think about Meghan Markle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they have finally broken their silence. I mean, everybody's, what is going on with them? My gosh, please, CBS News, please do an exclusive interview with them. Although to call it an interview is not quite right. Jane Pauley conducted what can only be called the journalistic equivalent of a full body massage with Harry and Meghan. Take a listen to this.
The connection that you have with people is they know you had suffered too, personally. Contemplating killing yourself is what suicidal ideation was. And I'm dancing around this because I can see you're uncomfortable with my even going there. Do you?
I understand why you are, though. I wasn't expecting it, but I understand why you are, because there is a through line, I think. And when you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it.
You know, to make yourself the victim when there are people in Hawaii who 1 year later are still living in a rented trailer, to talk about trauma and to look for people to feel sad for you. You are part of the royal family, and you married into the royal family and then dragged your husband out and then lit a match and threw it into the castle to see it blow up while you clip-clopped your shoes back to the United States to go get some sweet multi-million-dollar deals with a bunch of liberal elites in Hollywood, and you sit at home and do nothing, and you can't even get off of your tuft to actually put out some content that people care about, and that is supposed to be traumatic?
Did you say tuft?
I'm trying to keep it PC.
I appreciate that. You're trying to keep it pretty Anglo, too. By the way, those sweetheart deals, like at Netflix, apparently, according to an expert and someone who knows Harry, his name is Tom Quinn. I love that people are royal experts in England, told the Daily Mirror that Harry misses his life as a working royal and that his projects with Netflix aren't as fulfilling as he thought they'd be. He's trained from birth to do one thing, to be a royal, and he's thrown that away. His 100% support of his wife and her business ventures has never wavered, but he doesn't really have very much to do on a day-to-day basis. After he's taken the dog for a walk and maybe gone for a drive, he has nothing to do other than to support Meghan. And
that's pathetic.
Well, you should see watch this clip. We'll put it out there on our social media because there's a moment where Harry sort of interrupts Meghan in the middle of that Jane Pauley answer, and the side eye she gives him.
Ooh.
Oh, she does not. Oh, she hates him. They hate each other.
But now he has buyer's remorse, and I'm sorry, it's too late. You have buyer's remorse before you give up the crown. That you say, you know what, this is not working out. I know this is supposed to be a story, but you know. It's
never too late. The royal family has ways of taking care of these situations. Come on. We know that.
Well, that's probably true.
Just ask Queen Camilla, all right? It all works out in the end. It's 7. Watch your back, Meghan. 7:53.